Alrighty, so I just got back from Minnesota a couple of hours ago, and I just finished writing down the notes on this board and also on the other boards, and then I'm gonna have to write notes again for the remaining 6 games that finish in match week number 13, also known as the first midweek action of the 2024 MLS regular season. Because once again, just like the weekend's action, I am going to do a complete review, and that this is probably going to be a very long video. And also, gotta make sure I have my water ready because, like I said, this is gonna be a long video. So sit back, relax, and take a look at in terms of what we saw in the midweek action, which it wasn't as crazy as I thought it would be. I mean, there were definitely some goals that were scored this week, but yeah, there were a couple games that I was expecting more, and it turns out to be a bit of a letdown. And we also saw our first head coach that was being part weighted this season, and we'll get to that as we'll get through this review, and also once again talk about it a little bit later on in the news of the week episode. But first, we start off in the first game, which is Cincinnati versus Atlanta United. And no, Atlanta fans, unfortunately, the first head coach that is being fired this season is not Gonzalo Pineda. Though something tells me that he could potentially be the second head coach to be fired this season because, yeah, it is not looking good for him in terms of him staying with Atlanta, and especially with the way that Atlanta once again losing a road game, this time in the hands of Cincinnati. And it didn't take long for Cincinnati to get the opening goal, as 7 minutes in, Kevin Kelsey would score his second career MLS goal as he scored from Acosta to make it 1-0 in favor of Cincinnati. And that was the first shot of the game, and Kelsey basically left completely unmarked in the box. Yeah, that guy that in the last game that looked very active for Cincinnati, and maybe be a guy that might finally be the Brandon Vasquez replacement that they've been looking for a very long time. Maybe you might need to think about marking him, because the fact that he was completely left unmarked like that, just getting a free header and not even had to jump for it, that is just criminal defending from Atlanta United, and that's been kind of the story ever since this winless run began. In the 11th minute, Acosta then looked to get another, and he trying to get on the score sheet himself, but he puts it right to Guzan. Funny thing though, it was Cincinnati, the team that in the first ever meeting between both of these teams, kind of started the downfall of what we've seen in Atlanta United for the past month and a half. And then to make matters worse for Atlanta, Amada had to be subbed off. It seems like he was dealing a bit of a knock, and Silva had to replace him. Acosta then puts it wide from close range. It's been all Cincy up to this point. I mean, they had all the chances up to this point. Acosta then fires it wide on the free kick, and 30 minutes in, Atlanta has yet to register a shot. And I'm pretty sure Atlanta fans definitely not happy because of that. Salentano then denied Yakimakis, as that was Atlanta's first shot of the game, and then Silva would heads it wide on or heads it wide from the corner. Yakimakis then fires it way wide from long range, as Atlanta finally woke up. Now, after them not starting on time in this game, they were looking to push to try to get the equalizer, but we do head to halftime with Cincinnati leading 1-0. In the second half, there was a shout for a penalty not given to Cincy. Before Acosta would hit one right to Guzan, we then go through a period where not much really happened, which I thought that favored Cincy, knowing they had the lead. Mosquera then puts it wide from long range before Murphy goes on his bike there, and what a goal this would have been if Ian Murphy scored, but that one was deflected bit wide, and he actually met it pretty well as well. Buka then hits one right to Guzan from long range, as Cincinnati was looking to push this one away, and they had a chance to do so if it wasn't for Guzan denying Acosta and basically keep Atlanta in this game. But it was going no well, because in the end, Cincinnati they score early in this game, 7 minutes in, and that's all they need to get all 3 points of this game. Very Cincinnati has kind of 3 points that they've got, especially early this season, with a 1-0 win. The shots in this one, 13 shots for the 8 that Atlanta has, 1 shot on goal for the 5 that Cincinnati has, 4 shots off target to 2 that Cincinnati has, 5 shots out blocked compared to 3 that Atlanta has, and possession-wise, 52% possession compared to 48% possession that Cincinnati has in this game. And more importantly for Cincinnati, they made up ground in terms of their race with Inter Miami in the Supporter Shield race, because as we'll talk about in the Florida Derby in just a bit, Miami didn't get the win in that game. But for Atlanta United, like I said, it's been a miserable last month and a half for this team. And as I mentioned, I would not be surprised that if this does continue, we could potentially see a change of head coach and maybe even a change of GM too. Because as much as obviously Pineda gets most of the blame, I'm pretty sure Atlanta fans are also want Carlos Bocanegra out, and they've been wanting him out for now a season and a half. And I think maybe this is really kind of the writings on the wall, and that won't be surprised that this ownership, especially Garv Lagerway, maybe pull the trigger and fire both Pineda and Bocanegra at the same time. Now, moving on in the next match is DC United and the New York Red Bulls. So what's kind of interesting about this game is that it didn't really felt like this was a blowout for the Red Bulls. I mean, I know the scoreline basically shown that, but DC had their chances in this game, but it's just one of those games where the Red Bulls were the more clinical side. They took the chances that they had, and DC didn't. Now, in the early on, not much really happened in the first 10 minutes of this game, as it's been a cagey affair in this Atlantic Cup early. The first shot of the game did see Manuel hits it right to Bono before there was a bit of a pinball action in the Red Bulls box there. Sauce Hopkins hits this one right to Cornell, so that was a bit fortunate for the Red Bulls because you do not want to see a pinball action that is happening in your own box. McVay then puts it wide from close range before Morgan missed wide from close range as I thought the game started lining it up. Both of these teams were getting some chances. Bono then denied Harper in the near post, but then the third minute of stoppage time, Red Bulls take the lead, and what a goal this is from Elias Manuel. I mean, he basically uh, brought this one down and decided, hey, why not? I'm just going to hit this one on the volley from 40 yards out, and knowing that Bono was kind of off his line, why not try it and see if it goes in? And it went in. So, yeah, that was definitely a great goal. Definitely contention for the goal of the week. Maybe even win the goal of the week because you usually don't see a 40-yard screamer like what we see every single week, and maybe even a contention for goal of the year as well. But, yeah, that gives the Red Bulls a 1-0 lead, and that was the scoreline heading into the second half. And in the second half, Click would then puts it wide from close range before Bartlett would heads it wide from the corner, as I thought DC started well early in the second half. But the problem, as we'll talk about throughout this game, they just weren't able to put away their chances that they've been given, whereas the Red Bulls are able to do so. Because in the 52nd minute, Cameron Harper would score from Manuel to give the Red Bulls a 2-0 lead. Dahome did look to respond, but he missed wide there. And then just 1 minute later, the Red Bulls would make it 3-0. It's Lewis Morgan's second game in a row that he gets on the score sheet in this month, and yeah, that made it 3-0 in favor of the Red Bulls. Again, up to this point, it definitely did not feel like a game that even though the Red Bulls were leading 3-0, it didn't feel like they would just completely dominate this game. And again, this just shows you how DC had the chances they weren't able to put away. I know I said this a lot throughout this game, but that was kind of the story throughout this game. Benteke then hits one right to Bono before Cornell would deny Hopkins from close range. DC that then I said to their critics, still trying to get one back despite their 3-0 down, and they were finally rewarded with them putting away one of their chances. I mean, it was a matter of time before they finally put away one of their chances, and Lucas Bartlett puts this one away from Santos to make it 3-1 in favor of the Red Bulls. Benteke then missed just wide from long range. And this is where, if you're the Red Bulls, you got to be careful because, again, they were giving up a lot of chances to DC. And we already seen this season a 3-0 lead is blown this season. And I'm sorry, Sporting KC fans, that I have to mention this again because that's what happens every single time when I see a team up 3-0 and be a little bit too complacent as I saw the Red Bulls were being. Cornell then denied Benteke from long range before the post would deny Benteke from close range. So DC was this close in terms of really making this a game. But instead, in the fourth minute stoppage time, Corey Perk made sure it's an Atlantic Cup win for the Red Bulls as he scored from Amaya and Van Zier to pretty much close this game away. And in the end, it's the Red Bulls with a big 4-1 win on the road in the Atlantic Cup. The shots in this one, 20 shots compared to 11 that the Red Bulls had. So DC outshot the Red Bulls in this game. But the shots on goal basically tells the story. 7 shots on goal compared to 5 that DC had. 2 shots off target for the 7 that DC had. 6 shots that was blocked for the 2 that the Red Bulls had. And possession-wise, 55% possession Here, the 45% possession the Red Bulls has in this game, and like I said, the Red Bulls, it's a good win for them. They continue to climb up in the Eastern Conference table, but for DC again, they didn't play badly in this game. They just couldn't finish, and also not to mention their defense. Yeah, you know how I said that they didn't play badly. That does not apply to the defense. The defense was pretty non-existent in this game for DC United in this Atlantic Cup. Now, moving on in the next match is Montreal and the Columbus Crew, and if you believe it, this is the first win for Columbus since March. Columbus has had a tough time in terms of league play, and again, a lot of that has to do with the fact that they've been battling CC and also league play, and we know that's obviously a very tough kind of task to try to balance out. But in this game, in this Wilfred Nancy derby, Wilfred Nancy got the better of his old team once again. Now, in the first half, it looked like that wasn't the case because Matthew Schreinier would put the ball into the back of net. Almost the flag did not agree with him, so the goal, of course, was disallowed for offside. Lassiter would then miss a sitter from close range, as I thought Montreal started well as they were looking for the opening goal. Morris then missed wide from close range before in the 19th minute. Columbus would take his lead, as it's Max Arfston that gets the opening goal of this one. Keep in mind, Cucho Hernandez did not play in this one, and Columbus were kind of starting a bit of a reserve team in this one. Well, I wouldn't say it was a reserve team, but they were definitely playing their B team in this game. But as we all know, this is a Crew team that is very deep in terms of their depth, and one of those players that is a great option coming off the bench is Max Armstrong. He's been scoring a couple of goals for the Crew this season, and he gets on the score sheet here again to make it 1-0 in favor of the Columbus Crew. Yankov did look to respond, but he hits it right to Schulte before Ramirez puts it into the back of net. And what a goal this is from Christian Ramirez. The only problem was that the flag did not agree that was a good goal because it was disallowed because of offside. They actually did go to VAR to see whether or not if indeed it was offside, and of course that was the case. And I also thought it was way too easy for Columbus to completely open up this Montreal backline. Look, I get this Montreal team is dealing with injuries, and I get that obviously they don't have a lot of depth in their team, mainly because their owners are very cheap and they don't really invest in their depth. But man, this backline for Montreal has been really, really bad this season. I mean, they've just had really just these last couple of games just rough kind of run form. Though again, it doesn't help the fact that they are facing again some of the best attack in the league, and again, it just feels it's like in this game, just like the Miami game, they're just getting absolutely shredded by this Columbus team. In the 31st minute, Ibrahim would puts it over from close range before they actually got a penalty in the 45th minute. Montreal, that is, and Schulte brought down Sosa down in the box, so Schulte kind of came off his lines a little bit late, couldn't really quite get to the ball before Sosa trying to round the keeper. And yeah, just like that, it was a lifeline for Montreal, and this time Schreinier does score or get on the score sheet as from the penalty spot. He buries it to tie the game up at one apiece as we head to halftime with that scoreline. So that quickly changed in the second half, as in the 59th minute, finally it happened. Diego Rossi finally scored his first goal of the season in MLS. So we talk about these jokes about how it feels like he's just not allowed to score goals in MLS play and he's only allowed to score in CONCACAF Champions Cup plays. Well, it seems like it finally was null and void in this game as he finally is allowed to score in MLS play. He scored from Herrera to give the Crew the lead back in this one. Matan then hits one right to see Was before Ramirez would miss wide from close range as Columbus. They were cooking in this game. I mean they were just ripping this ripping this Montreal defense apart, and they were looking to put this one away with the third goal. Though on the other end, Corbo would hit it just high from long range before Mason Toy was in on goal there, but he only finds Schulte with the shot. Montreal, to their credit, they looked like they were pressing back to try to get the equalizer, but in the 89th minute, Mariano Hennestroza called game. as he scored here from Maria and Morris to make it 3-1 in favor of the Crew, and that would be the final score of this game. As in the end, the shots in this one, 11 shots compared to 10 that Montreal has, 6 shots on goal compared to 3 that Montreal has, 3 shots off target compared to 8 that Columbus had, 2 shots that was blocked compared to 3 that Montreal has, and possession-wise, 58% possession compared to the 42% possession that Montreal has in this game. And, I mentioned in the last game, Columbus are going through a bit of a long road trip. Well, it turns out not only it's a long road trip, but it's a 5-game road swing to for these next couple of games. So this is a really brutal stretch for a Wilfred Nancy side, but got off to a good start with him beating against his former team with a 3-1 win. But for Montreal, again, I know injuries and I know they don't have a lot of depth, but it's definitely started getting away from them again and getting away from long Porto after a decent start in terms of their first 6-game stretch on the road, because they're not winning home games, which is something that we saw them do, at least did a lot under Lasada. Now, moving on in terms of the next match. So, earlier in my intro, I talked about some of these games. Turns out to be a bit of a letdown. I think this one is definitely going to be that case. Now, to be fair, part of the reason why this was kind of a letdown, and at least, in MLS sake and in terms of general public sake, is the fact that Messi didn't play in this game. So Messi was out in this game, and that there is a big question that whether or not if Inter Miami can actually get a win without Messi, because so far this season they only won 1 game out of the 4 games that Messi did not play, and there were some ugly results during those time when Messi didn't play. Well, it turns out that it's now 1 win in 5 games for Miami without Messi in this one, as they have still yet beat Orlando City on the road. Now, the first shot of the game in the 3rd minute did see Galace denied Suarez from close range, and up to this point, I thought that was a warning shot for Orlando's defense, because yeah, that was definitely not great defending from Orlando, and we talk about Orlando themselves also battling with injuries, especially on the defensive front as well. I mean, they're basically down both of their 2 center backs now, as I think Ruben Janssen didn't play in this game because he got stretcher off in the last game. But the shots were 2-0 for Miami early on in this one. There wasn't really much chances, at least in this floor the derby. Um Moriel would then puts one into the side netting from the near post before Torres would puts it wide from close in the 18th minute, as Orlando was starting to grow into this game and was pushing for the opener. Counter would then deny Ojeda from close before Moriel would hits one right to counter in the 33rd minute. The shot went out 8-2 for Orlando. So yeah, those 2 shots that Miami has got early in the game, well, those are kind of the only 2 shots they would get for a while, because for a while they were stuck on only just 2 shots in this first half. Though they did get their 3rd shot in the 35th minute, as Rojas had a free kick that was tipped over by Galese, but we do head to halftime scoreless between both of these teams. Now, in the second half, Morial would then had a shot that took a deflection but goes high before Suarez on the other end heads it wide from close range, and then he hits one right to Galese a moment later, but it wouldn't have counted because the flag went up. But I thought, this is where both of these teams were starting to create the chances, and maybe this is where the Florida Derby is going to liven up, right? No, it didn't, because we then go for a period where really not much happened, and there was a lot of whistle and a lot of physical play, as you sometimes would see in a derby play like this. Ojeda then missed wide from long range in the 79th minute, and really as the time winds down, it looked like Miami was playing for a point. It looked like they were interested in terms of finally getting their first win against Orlando on the road, and they were kind of letting Orlando to kind of just come at them and see how it goes. Now, because Orlando this season has really struggled at home, especially with their attack, I mean, it shouldn't surprise anyone that Orlando didn't really create a much chance down the stretch as well. So yeah, in the end, it ends in a 0-0 draw in this one, and the shots in this one, 14 shots compared to just 6 that Miami has in this one. 4 shots on goal compared to 3 that Orlando has. 2 shots off target compared to 5 that Orlando has. No shots that or no, 6 shots that was blocked compared to 1 that Miami has, and possession-wise, 57% possession compared to 43% possession that Orlando City has in this game. And again, overall, This what was definitely, I mean, one of those derby games that, yeah, you could say that kind of didn't live up to his expectation. Now, obviously, Messi was in this game. I think that would have maybe changed things, especially for Inter Miami. I think they would have been much more explosive on the attack, and I think this is also kind of the reason why I'm a little bullish in terms of Inter Miami in terms so their supporter shield. Uh, chances because I know right now I heard all the media and all the talks about how, oh, this Inter Miami team is gonna win the supporter shield because of how strong they are right now in the standings. And yes, even though they're still first right now as we speak and still lead the supporter shield racing, you got to remember they play the most game out of anybody, and Cincinnati has a couple of game in hand. And if Cincinnati win those game in hand, which if they have their game in hand right now, I guarantee Cincinnati will win because they're red hot right now, and especially with the way that Inter Miami continue to struggle to try to win games without Messi, and knowing the fact that we are heading into June and we're getting to that point where the Copa America tournament is going to begin, and Inter Miami is not only going to lose Messi, but they're going to lose some of their talented player on their roster as well because of Copa America. That's kind of why I don't think this team is going to win the Supporter Shield. I think they're going to drop points during those summer months when Messi, of course, is not going to be available. And also, God forbid, if Messi gets injured again, like what we saw at the beginning of the season, yeah, this is where maybe that Supporter Shield might not be within hand. Even though I know Inter Miami has looked kind of unstoppable in the last couple of games, and again, big part of that is because you have the greatest player of all time basically pulling the string. But for Orlando City, I mean, I guess they'll take the draw. I mean, it's a good bounce back after the 5-0 thrashing that they took in the first ever meeting between their arch rival. Though that being said, you got to say their not their road, but their home struggle continued this season. I mean, they have not won a lot of home games this season. I think they've only won like one home games this season, and that is a huge problem for this Orlando City side. And the reason why they're where they are right now in the standings. Now, moving on, and actually now I am going to change boards and look at the next three games as part of this mega review that I'm doing in terms of these midweek action. So moving on, in the next game is the Union versus NYCFC, and we definitely saw something out of the ordinary in this game. Though besides that, yeah, it's safe to say that the Union, just like Atlanta United, are probably hitting the panic button real hard right now. Now, in the first half, just 2 minutes into this game, NYCFC takes the lead. It's Alonso Martinez. He scored from Rodriguez and Pereira to give NYCFC a 1-0 lead. And I gotta say, for NYCFC, not only they are winning games lately under Nick Cushing, and that I'm pretty sure his seat has definitely got pretty cool because of this winning run. They're starting to figure it out on the attack, and I think it's kind of about time the fact that they've started to figure out on the attack because early on we saw the struggle that they had this season, and maybe this is just a case of just when they have so many young guys on their roster, it takes a while before the chemistry develop. And then once the chemistry has developed, as what we see with NYCFC, this team started quietly trying to get up in the standing in the East and maybe be a contender by the end of the season if all their young pieces can hit to potential. Now now that being said, in the 11th minute, Carranza did look to respond, but he was denied by Freeze before Semlet would deny Rodriguez, but NYCFC gets a second grab as Pereira would then fires it wide from close range. Andre Pereira definitely had a NYCFC because or not against NYCFC, I'm sorry, but against the Philadelphia Union. He's played with NYCFC right now because, yeah, he definitely was up for it in this game and he definitely want to score against his former team. We then get a delay in the 24th minute, and this is where it was kind of a little bit out of the ordinary as there was a raccoon basically running on the pitch. They didn't even mention there was like I think 163 seconds. The raccoon, of course, were running on the pitch, which that is a record for the longest a raccoon basically run on the pitch in MLS history. But also, I would like to say that ever since RFK Stadium has been knocked down and these raccoons basically have been running away around the DC area. I think one of them probably found themselves moving all the way up to the Philadelphia area, or in this case, the Chester their area, because that can only explain why a raccoon basically was running on the pitch. And something tells me I'm pretty sure DC wants to have that raccoon back to their team. But that being said, in the 20th minute, Semlet did deny Perea again in the near post as NYCFC was definitely going strong. They were looking for another one. Freeze then denied Wagner from close in the 36th minute before Mario had a shot that was clear off the line, but he actually gets a second crack of it and he hits the side netting as the Union finally started to woke up. I mean, they did not start on time in this game. This has been a problem for them this season as well, especially doing this losing run. And they were looking to try to get themselves the equalizer. But in the second minute of stoppage time, NYCFC made it 2-0. It's Hannes Wolf. He scored his first career MLS goal. And yeah, this is one that, while it was a great goal from Hannes Wolf, the fact that he basically was able to score from almost an impossible angle, almost an Olympic goal kind of style of goal, with him scoring this free kick close to the corner flag. Yeah, that's one that Simla would want to have back, and that is one that he should have got to it. That ball was basically floating in the air. He could have basically punched that one away, and that should have just been a corner for NYCFC instead of the first career goal for Hannes Wolf. But that being said, give credit to Hannes Wolf and give credit to NYCFC. They wouldn't care. They were now leading 2-0 in this one. Sullivan did look for a response, but he hits one right to freeze before Semlin on the other end with denying Ojeda from long range, and the boos were definitely raining down at the halftime whistle. Now, normally I talk about the boos basically raining down at the full-time whistle because the home fans were definitely restless in terms of how their team has played. But if you know one thing about Philly fans is that, yeah, they're not afraid to show their displeasure and especially boo their fans. In fact, that's kind of almost a natural thing. I'm surprised it hasn't happened more often than not at Union game. But yeah, you can definitely hear pretty loud. I mean, there was a lot of restless Union fans in front of in that pouring rain at Super Park that was very frustrated with how their team is playing, down 2-0 at home. With that being said, in the second half, they will be a little bit less frustrated because in the 47th minute, Carranza would get one back as he scored here to make it 2-1 in favor of NYCFC. It was also a great free kick there for Carranza to give life for the Union. Martinez that then looked to respond instantly for NYCFC, but he was denied by Semlet before Carranza would cross it wide from close, and then he puts it wide from the header in the 58th minute. And all of a sudden, the momentum was with the Union. They were looking to try to get one back, or not get one back, I'm sorry, but tie the game up to this point. But the question is, can they find that clinical finishing? Because up to this point, that clinical finishing was just not there for the Union. Glesnes then puts it wide on the header before Jones would look to try to finish it for NYCFC, but he was denied by Samlet. Gastag would then hits it right to freeze before Martins would puts it wide from close range, as both of these teams were extending chances, and it seems like this game was on a bit of a knife edge up to this point. But in the third minute stoppage time, it looked like Elliott salvaged a point for the Union as he put the ball into the back of the net. Problem was, Frank did not agree with him, so that basically cuts the celebration to a hold, and instead that goal was dropped off, and NYCFC remained leading in this one. And in the end, they would hold on to win 2-1 in this game. This is the first time in Philadelphia Union history that they have lost four straight game at home this season. Yeah, it is safe to say that, like I said, with them in Atlanta, their fan base must be hitting the panic button hard with the way how this early part, or not even this early part of the season, but as we approach into June and already approach almost a halfway point of this season, there's a lot of panic between both of the fan base of them just kind of underachieving. And the shots in this one, 24 shots committed, 11 that NYCFC had, 7 shots on goal committed, 5 that the Union has, 8 shots off target compared to the 4 that NYCFC had, no shots that was blocked for the 8 that the Union has, and possession-wise, 57% possession compared to 43% possession that NYCFC has in this game. And I would also say that this Union game looked very similar to the last Union game that they had against Orlando, where their attack was not playing badly. I mean, their attack still create chances, The problem is they just can't show that clinical finishing. And then on the other end, that defense, I mean, it is not very often to say a Jim Curran coach team, at least in the last couple of years, that their defense has been very in discipline and just been all over the place. But that's been the case, at least for these last couple of games, and really for this season as well. It turns out that game against Saprissa in the CONCACAF Champions Cup, which was the first game of the season when they looked really real, really out of order in terms of their defense. Seems like maybe now that was not just a one off. Maybe that was kind of foretelling of how bad the defense has been this season for the Philadelphia Union. And like I said, things got to change for this team. There's no way in the world this team, along with Atlanta United, with how good the talent that they had, be right now, the Union, I think, are they're just above the red line right now, whereas Atlanta continue to stay below the red line because they didn't even get a win this weekend against Cincinnati. Now, moving on in the next game, and I gotta definitely drink a huge bit of water because I'm actually starting to lose my voice. I ate a cup noodle earlier before I did this review, and I think I'm definitely thinking of having that back because that cup noodle has really just almost kill my voice a bit. So that being said, again, we gotta go through this review and of course talk about the news of the week in just a bit. But in the next game, it is Austin versus the Houston Dynamo, and I gotta say, Los Verdes, they love playing against Texas team. I mean, I know in the last game that they lost against Dallas, but they were the better team against Dallas, and they just weren't able to find their clinical finishing. And it looked like this was also one of those games where neither of these teams were going to find their clinical finishing and it was going to end in a 0-0 draw. That's when the late magic of Austin that we saw in their second season in their expansion year was found in this game against the Dynamo. Now, early on, the Post would deny Rubio and Austin the opening goal just 38 seconds in before Stuver would deny Bossy after just a WTF turnover from Austin. So, while Austin has definitely been playing better lately, they're still committing those WTF turnover that kind of doomed them in the early part of the season. Stuver then denied Bossy after, or actually, I just said that. But I also thought that it's been a fast start in this Copa Tias as both of these teams was pushing for the opener from the get go. Speaking of the post, it would then deny Ring, and on the second effort, Gallagher had a chance to put it away, but he puts that one high. And I'll tell you what, Seaflower must be kissing that post up to this point because that's twice the that the post rescued the Dynamo, potentially going down 1-0 in this game. Though in the 22nd minute, Rain would then skies one into San Antonio before Stuver would absolutely rob Kovacevic from close range. On the other end, Karaskiya would puts it high from long range before Dreyusi would miss an absolute sitter from close range. Yeah, that's one that Dreyusi would want to have back. And again, it's been kind of a back and forth affair. Both of these teams were getting some good chances. That would be the storyline throughout this game as well. But we do head to halftime scoreless between both of these teams. Now in the second half, Stuver would deny Sevchenko from close range before he would hit one right to Stuver just 1 minute later. The Dynamo, I thought they started well into the second half, and they were looking for the opening thing go up to this point. Clark would then had to swat this ball away after it was popped up from 6 yards out. So anytime the ball is popped up in a very close range, that is a very helpless feeling if you're a defender and you're a goalkeeper. You better pray you get there first because if you don't get there first, that's in the back of the net. And fortunate for the Dynamo, and certainly fortunate for Steve Clark, he was able to get there first. Zardis would then hit it wide from close range before Karaskia would fires it wide from close. Aliu then skimmed the post from long range in the 72nd minute. And again, this Copa Tias, it feels like it was on a knife edge because it was really up for grabs. Both of these teams was trying to get the opening goal. But the question is, who can show that clinical finishing? Well, Rain tried to do so, but he hits one right to Clark before on the other end, Bossy would hit it right to Stuvert. He then would hit it to Stuvert again just 1 minute later, but then in the 87th minute, finally the breakthrough in this Copa Tias, and it goes to Austin FC, as Sebastian Dreyusi would get the breakthrough in this game, and it was kind of a bit of a broken play too, because this was a set piece that It was kind of the ball dangling in the 6 yard area, and anytime when you don't clear your lines and you let that ball dangling in the 6 yards area, yeah, you're gonna get punished. And the Dynamo didn't clear their lines because of that. They got punished, and they found themselves 1-0 down late in this game. And then second minute of stop sign, where UC looked to try to get another and really put this game away, but he was denied by Clark in the near post. But in the end, Austin, they do hold on to win 1-0 in this one. Again, they love playing against Texas team. This is their second win against the Houston Dynamo, and I believe they already got a win against Dallas as well. Obviously, I know they also got a loss against Dallas in the last game, but again, in the last game they were maybe a little unfortunate not to get anything out of that game against Dallas. But the shots in this one, 13 shots for the 17 that the Dynamo had, 6 shots on goal for the 4 that Austin has, 3 shots off target for the 4 that Austin had, 7 shots that was blocked for the 3 that Austin had, and possession-wise, 53% possession compared to 47% possession that Austin has in this game. And for the Dynamo, they didn't play bad in this game as well, but it's just one of those games where it's a game between two teams that it's all about who can show that clinical finishing or just have that one magical moment. Austin basically shown it, Houston didn't, and that's kind of the reason why Los Verdes is walking away with all 3 points in this game. And it looks like the Dynamo are probably not going to be anywhere close of winning Copa Tias this season. They haven't won Copa Tias so far ever since this trophy was introduced, and again, it doesn't seem like this is going to be the year to do so either. Now, moving on into the next match, and this is, of course, the game that I went to between Minnesota versus the Galaxy. Now, I didn't do a quick post game recap after the game was over because right as I exit the stadium, it started to rain very hard. And I was actually really concerned that it was going to rain because I checked the weather. There was a huge chance that it was going to rain maybe during the match. It didn't. It actually rained right, or it actually started raining right after when the full time whistle was blown. So that's a bit convenient in terms of where I was sitting because I was basically sitting literally at pitch side, literally in the first row of Allianz Field. With that being said, in terms of me getting a front row action of this game, well, I gotta say, even though it didn't feature as many goals as we've seen in the previous Galaxy versus Minnesota game, because this fixture always tends to bring a lot of goals between both of these teams, it definitely brings up some entertaining soccer throughout this game because that's how Galaxy game is this season. I mean, I've said it many times before. It's not a Galaxy game if there's not some crazy action and some goals that's being scored, and we saw it once again in this game as well. Now in the first half, McCarthy would tip shot cross over before Longwane would put it over from long range, as I thought the Loons were on the front foot early, and that was important because Minnesota has been having problems this season in terms of starting strong early on. Though at least in the last two home games, they've definitely been better in terms of starting on time. They were pushing for the opening goal. Tapias would then heads it wide following corner before McCarthy would deny Rosales from the free kick. Lud then puts it high from close range as the shots were now 5-0 for Minnesota, but only one of them has been on target, which is kind of strange because I feel like it should have been two because the Lud shot cross that probably should have counted as a shot on target, but apparently going back to the stat chart, they didn't count that as a shot. But I also thought that the final third play, Minnesota was creating chances, but I thought they weren't being as clean in terms of the final third play either. At times, it kind of looked a little bit sloppy from the Loons there. So they kind of ate. I kind of ate my word just a couple of minutes after I wrote that because they would get the opening goal in the 30th minute as Longwane would score from Lud and Rosales to give Minnesota a 1-0 lead. Now originally, they didn't say that this was a goal because when this ball was hit off the post and in, and what a hit this was from Bangakule Longwane. I mean, hitting this one off the volley, hitting off the post and bounce onto the ground. Originally, they thought that one bounced out, but they did go to VAR to see whether or not if that actually bounced over the line, and it did, and it wasn't even close as well. The VAR, this review didn't take long whatsoever, and a goal was given. So Minnesota was leading 1-0 in this game, and 37 minutes in, Galaxy has still yet to register a shot. It was a defensive master class up to that point for the Loons. And most part of that is because they were really shutting down the Galaxy in terms of going through the transition. They were doing a really good job in terms of. I think early on the reason why they were doing a good job is because Eric Ramsey was really pressing the team. They were really pressing this Galaxy team, making sure they don't have that outlet pass, and that could be a risky thing to do because when you press against a transitional team as well, if you don't get that original press correct and you don't win the ball high up the pitch, yeah, you're gonna leave yourself a lot of space at the back. But credit to this Loon's defense and credit to Ramsey's tactical display. He did a really good job in terms of making sure that press worked out. There was just time after time where Minnesota was able to win the ball high up the pitch and really didn't allow the Galaxy any chances in terms of going on the other end. I mean, notice I also didn't mention Ricky Pooch or even Joseph Painso throughout the first half. They were pretty much a non-factor in the first half. In the 45th minute, Olo Estrella would then had a free header but missed wide there. So yeah, that's a rare moment there from Tani. I mean, he's been a lethal goal scorer, and you would expect him to put that one away. And the Galaxy also would finish the half with 0 shots in the entire first half. I think that's the first time it has happened this season, and really the first time it's been happened for a very long time. As yeah, arguably that was the worst first half that the Galaxy have ever played, but certainly the best first half defensive display that Minnesota has had in a very long time. But we do head to halftime with the Loons leading 1-0 in the second half. Taylor would puts it wide in the near post before the first shot for the Galaxy did came as Peck would hit one right to Dane Sinclair, but the shots were still 9-1 for Minnesota up to this point. Although only 3 of them, of course, was on goal, and that, of course, is combined for both teams. I also thought the Galaxy started to got into this game, and part of that is because they started to bring in some reinforcement, and I thought that could be a real test for the Loons defense because up to this point, the Galaxy haven't really bringing their big weapon in Jovic and Fagundes, and it turns out, yeah, that test that they have with those big weapons the Galaxy were putting in, it fell immediately because literally just a couple of minutes after Jovic come onto the pitch. Talk about how him being the king in terms of coming off the bench and making instant impact. And he did it again. He scored from Peck and Pooch to tie the game up at 1 apiece. Pookie did try to respond, but he missed wide there before Lud would puts it way wide from long range. Rosales then puts one into the wonder wall, and this is where I started kind of getting a little frustrated because again the Loons were creating some good chances. They were showing that pushback. They got to be better in terms of their finishing because I know for a fact that it only takes one chance. It only takes one transitional play, and the Galaxy will put the ball into the back of net. Guess what happened? They had one good transitional play, and the ball was in the back of net, and they take the lead. As Fagundes would score from Pooch and Brugman to make it 2-1 in favor of the Galaxy. And again, that entire first half where the Loons were doing a good job in terms of shutting down any potential transitional play and any potential outlet pass. That time they didn't do that at all. In fact, they left like gaping hole for Ricky Pooch to run. Like Ricky Pooch had like about 15 yards in front of him, and as soon as I saw that, I knew the Galaxy was going to score. Like that is just way too much space for Ricky Pooch to work with, and it's no surprise that he found Fagundes there and playing through. And yeah, just like that, it was 2-1 in favor of the Galaxy. All the good work that Minnesota has done throughout this game, and now they found themselves down in this one. Fragapani then puts it over on the doorstep of goal, and I immediately wrote, oh, it's one of those days, isn't it? It's one of those games that I remember from the Loons last season, especially under Adrian Heath, that no matter how many chances that they get, they're just not going to put the ball into the back of the net. McCarthy then denied Lud from close range before he missed one from close in the 80th minute, but then just 1 minute later on the ensuing corner, Arriaga scores. He scored from Rosales to make it 2-2 in this game. So I'll tell you what, Carvino Arriaga, I never thought that he was a good set piece goal scorer, but he's been getting a couple of goals in these last couple of games. Though again, that was kind of expected because yeah, we talk about the Galaxy and their Achilles heel is set piece defending. Guess what happened? The Achilles heel struck again and really just Arriaga completely left unmarked in the back post. Like that is just criminal set piece defending from the Galaxy, and really not the first time we have seen it this season as well. But then on the other end, Jovic was in on goal there, but he was denied by Dane Sinclair in the 82nd minute before McCarthy denied Arriaga from long range, and then he denied Rosales from close, and then Clark would put it wide from close range. As I thought Minnesota was really starting to push hard to try to get the lead back, and Galaxy was kind of holding on for dear life a little bit. But because this is Minnesota, and because it's kind of one of those games, you know that they're not going to get that third goal. Though there was a shout for a penalty for a handball that was not given late in this game. I didn't really get a good look at it because from where I was sitting, it was kind of really far. It was more further away from where that was a potential handball. And actually, I don't even think that that would have even been a penalty because that looked like it was going to happen outside the box. But that being said, in the end, it ends in a 2-2 draw in this game as the shots in this one 24 shots compared to 5 that the Galaxy had. 5 shots on goal compared to 7 that Minnesota has. 13 shots off target compared to none the Galaxy had. So, yeah, Minnesota had 20 of their 24 shots. Basically, it was toward net. They were definitely putting a shooting gallery in front McCarthy's net. 4 shots that was blocked, but none that the Galaxy had. And possession-wise, 56% possession compared to 44% possession that Minnesota has in this game. And again, overall, there's two ways you can look at this. On one hand, I think Minnesota definitely showed that resilience because I think last season the Loons wouldn't have lost this game under Adrian Heath. They wouldn't have shown that resilience to come back when they face some adversity. With that being said, when they have that many chances in this game, they have to get 3 points. And especially with the way that the home form, again, I think it's a little bit better this season in terms of their home form. It hasn't been ideal, I will say. They got to get 3 points in this game. Simple as that. And for the Galaxy, I mean, I guess you could also say that they're happy with this result because they were really holding on for dear life and they definitely did not play well throughout this game. But what's got to frustrate Galaxy fans has to be the fact that their defending set pieces continue to be a problem. This team's got to fix their set piece defending. Like when you're even worse at defending set pieces and conceding more goals defending set pieces than Inter Miami, who is the second worst set piece defending team, you have some serious problem in terms of that, and that this team, if they want to be considering themselves a contender in the Western Conference, they got to clean up their set piece defending because if they don't, this is a team that's not going to go very far in the playoffs. I mean, I know this is a team that can score goals and they're an entertaining team to watch, but Galaxy fans are probably just pulling their hair out every time that this team has conceded they set piece because again they just have no answer to fix this, and I can't tell is it getting even worse for this team as the season goes along before it's even getting better as the season goes along. But that being said, I am now going to switch boards and look at the next 4 games, and in fact, I'm gonna erase this board and erase the other board and look at the remaining 6 games that happen in terms of the midweek action of match week number 13. All right, so moving on, we got Chicago versus Charlotte FC, and this was a very Charlotte FC and Dean Smith kind of performance. So, throughout the season, I talked about how Dean Smith, despite the fact that, his team is lacking talent, especially on the attack, they've been very good in terms of grinding out result, and this is another example of it against a lowly Chicago Fire side. Now, early on, Vargas would put it over from the near post as not much really happened as the shots were only 2-1 for the Fire 15 minutes in. Kuipers would then hit it right to Kalina before Kalina denied Kuipers from close range. Shaqiri then tried to one-up Manuel with a goal from the halfway line, but that one puts it over. I mean, man, can you imagine? We see both Elias Manuel and Jordan Shaqiri both scoring from close to the halfway line on the same week. I mean, that's just peak MLS if that would happen. But that being said, the Fire, I thought they had been the better team at least early on, but can they get the finish, which was kind of lacking up to this point and will be lacking throughout the game? Tiran then cleared the ball off the line after Kuipers actually cleared that one. It hits Tiran and it was goal bound. If that one went in, that would have been the most Chicago Fire-esque goal to concede, and that probably would also sums up this season and pretty much the last decade for the Chicago Fire. It also would be kind of funny to see how you basically clear it off your teammate and it ends up being one of the most hilarious own goals since the Alvataric own goal that Austin had against Violet. And I know, I'm sorry, Austin fans, I'm still going to mention that because that was a hilarious own goal and probably the most hilarious own goal I've ever seen. But we do head to halftime with the score scoreless. In the second half, Acosta would hit it right to Kalina before Brady denied Melanda from close range. But in the 60th minute, sure to take the lead. It's Ashley Westwood, the captain. He scores a great free kick goal. There was definitely a lot of good free kick goal that was scored this midweek, and this was one of them as Charlotte takes the lead because of that. There was a shout for a penalty for the Fire not giving after that before Gutierrez would puts it high on the free kick in the 68th minute as the Fire was starting to push back for the equalizer. And Charlotte was kind of doing their usual, dropping their lines and hope that they can see out a big road win. Kuipers would then hit it right to Kalina in the 4th minute stoppage time before Kalina denied Tiran from close range. And this is where you get a sense that, yeah, Charlotte is definitely dying to hear the final whistle because, yeah, they were holding on for dear life. The Fire were throwing the kitchen sink to trying to get the equalizer. Fortunately for Charlotte, they hold on to win 1-0 in this one. As the shots in this one, 9 shots compared to 14 that the Fire has, 2 shots on goal compared to 5 that the Fire has, 2 shots off target compared to 4 that Charlotte has, 6 shots that was blocked compared to 3 that Charlotte has, and possession-wise, 56% possession compared to 44% possession that Charlotte has in this game. So, like I said, for Charlotte this season, most of the wins hasn't been pretty, but Dean Smith and the Charlotte fan base wouldn't care because when you lack talent on the attack, sometimes you just got to do that, and especially with the way that, as I'll talk about in just a bit, with one of their DP player also departing recently. Now all of a sudden, Charlotte has a lot of flexibility in the summer in terms of who they're gonna sign their designated player, and it'll be very interesting to see if they do so because once Dean Smith does get the resource, I think the Charlotte team can do really well and can really surprise a lot of people. You can't say that about the Chicago Fire. Yeah, it's been a dumpster fire, at least for the past month or two. And again, I've said it before. They're right now one of the biggest disappointment so far this season. Now, moving on in terms of the next match. So the big story coming out of this match, obviously, is that we saw our first head coach being fired as Gary Smith was relieved of his duties after this game, and it's kind of coming at a weird time because his team actually got the win in this one against Toronto FC. Though I'll talk a little bit more about that in the news of the week episode after I finish this review. But that being said, in terms of the games itself, yeah, if you watch this game, I definitely send my condolences because this is going to be right up there as one of the most boring game of this year. And it's quite interesting that it feels like Nashville game lately has been probably the most boring to watch, and maybe that's kind of the reason why Nashville fans are really happy that Gary Smith is no longer the head coach of this team. Like I said, first 20 minutes, yeah, nothing really happened. In the 20th minute, Spicer did hit the first shot of the game, and he hits it right to Willis. And 30 minutes in, there was only 2 shots for this entire game, and basically, yeah, 2 shot in the entire game combined for both teams, and that would also be the only 2 shots that we would get for the entire half too, as we head to halftime scoreless between both of these teams. And I don't think I have had a review where I look at a game where I only wrote like 3 notes point, and that was it for the first half. I mean, that's how boring that first half was. I got a little bit better in the second half. Spicer would then puts it wide for close range, so it's crazy to say that that was only the 3rd shot of the game, and Tyree Spicer has 2 of the 3 shots so far in this game. Boyd then hits one right to Gavron before there was a confusion defending set piece there from Nashville, and Kerr almost took advantage of it, but Hischel was blocked by Bauer. Mukhtar then puts it wide from long range as the chances were starting to come. It feels like finally the game started to open up after both of these teams kind of forgot how to attack in the first half. Rosted would then hits it right to Willis, but then in the 81st minute, Nashville takes the lead. It's Shaq Moore. He scored from Zimmerman and Godoy to give Nashville a 1-0 lead. 10 minutes later, they put this game away as Teal Bunbury would score from Tyler Boyd to make it 2-0 in favor of Nashville. And that was the final score of this game, as in the end, yeah, it was a very uneventful game, but hey, there was goals in this game. It's quite crazy to say that probably one of the most uneventful and one of the most boring game featured goal, and yet we have some games that are probably the craziest game this season, and yet no goals is found. That's just the life of soccer, and maybe just the life of Major League Soccer in general. But the shots in this one, yeah, only 7 shots compared to 6 that Nashville has. Both teams had 3 shots on goal, 1 shot off target compared to 2 that Toronto has. Both teams had 2 shots that was blocked. And possession-wise, 56% possession compared to 44% possession that Toronto has. Now, keep in mind, TFC did not have John Herman on the bench in this game, and we'll talk more about why that is the case in the News of the Week episode. And not to mention, they're also missing a lot of player, not just because of injury, but also because of that scuffle that happened, as the disciplinary committee definitely put the hammer on TFC in terms of the suspension. But that being said, for Nashville, yes, they'll be happy with the win. But I think they'll be even more happier the fact that Gary Smith has relieved his duty, and again we'll talk more about it and just kind of reflect on Gary Smith doing his time for Nashville, and I'll even kind of make maybe a little comparison of Adrian Heath doing his time with Minnesota United. Now moving on in terms of the next match is St. Louis and LAFC. So yeah, LAFC. It seems like things are starting to come up for them because they finally got their first win on the road in this game against St. Louis. The first shot of the game did see Durkin hits it right to Lloris before Nelson puts it wide from close range. They then go to VAR on that play to see whether or not if there was a handball that was committed there, which there was. It was almost the guilty parties. So yeah, that was a penalty given to St. Louis. Jean Claude has a chance to give the host the lead, but Lloris says no. He denied Claude from the spot. So as much as I know Hugo Lloris, he's been having a bit of a rough season with LAFC so far. At least he's doing well in terms of saving penalty, and he does a good job here, and even does a good job to deny um, loss on the rebound as well. Bouanga would then miss wide on the back post before Kamara with an overhead kick that missed wide. If he would have scored, that would have tied the record that Landon Donovan used to hold as the all-time goal scoring list. Obviously, Wando basically passed that a couple of years ago, but that would have been a way to make yourself the second all-time goal scorer in MLS history if you score an overhead kick like that from Kai Kamara. I mean, Kai Kamara is not known to score overhead kick. He's more known to be an aerial duel. So that would have been an interesting way, but certainly an iconic way to basically become the second all-time goal scorer in MLS history. I mean, there's no doubt that I think he's going to eventually get to that point and eventually going to pass Landon Donovan in terms of that mark. Now, in terms of catching Wando, that's a big question because Wando has still is a way to go before Kamara can catch him. But there's no doubt that I thought LAFC has gone to this game after a bit of a slow start in this one. Oliveira would then puts it wide from long range before Berkey denied Bogusz from close. And then it looked like it was 1-0 in favor of St. Louis as Marcanic puts it into the back of net. The problem was when he was trying to bring this one down and basically put this one into the back net, he handballed it. So they go to VAR to see if that's the case. It is. So the goal was chopped off, and instead of St. Louis leading 1-0 heading halftime, we had to halftime scoreless between both of these teams. Now in the second half, Bouanga would puts it wide from close as I thought LAFC started well. They were looking to get themselves the opener. They do, as in the 59th minute, Bouanga would be on target. He scored here from Bogusz to give LAFC a 1-0 lead. Ostrak on the other end looked to respond, but he hits it right to Lloris. And then Marcanic would unfortunately get himself a second yellow card of this game. Obviously, the St. Louis faithful didn't agree. In fact, they not only didn't agree, they told the ref that he really sucked after heading out that second yellow card. I think in the end they got this call right. I mean, for Marcanic, he did kind of swing his arm toward an LAFC player, and when you decide to do that, whether it's intentional or not, if you're sitting on a yellow card, there's always a discretion for the referee to give a second yellow, and I think that time we definitely saw that. So yeah, St. Louis were down to 10 men, and LAFC took advantage of it by pretty much closing out the game in the 5th minute stoppage time as Denis Bouanga. Yeah, it's safe to say he's back as he scored here to make it 2-0 in favor of LAFC, though he would also like to thank the St. Louis backline, and I feel like now St. Louis has started to get a little taste of their own medicine of how St. Louis has always been a team, especially in their expansion season, known to capitalize on mistake, and it feels like that's just almost becoming a meme. Well, now they get a little taste of their own medicine of giving the ball away in a bad spot spot, or actually not given away, but just in this moment, I think it was Durkin the one just kind of slipped, and it allowed Bawanga to go clean on goal. And once Bawanga goes clean on goal, yeah, you're not gonna stop him. I mean, Berkey did his best to make himself as big as possible, but Bawanga just say, "Oh, well, I'm just gonna chip that over your head," and that's exactly what happened, and that made it 2-0 in favor of LAFC. And that's the final score of this game as well, as it's the first win for LAFC this season on the road. The shots in this one, 12 shots compared to 14 that St. Louis had, 7 shots on goal compared to 3 that LAFC had, 5 shots off target compared to 2 that St. Louis had, 5 shots that was blocked compared to the 4 that LAFC had, and possession-wise, 55% possession compared to the 45% possession that LAFC has in this game. But for St. Louis, well, these last 2 games, the good news is they stopped drawing games. The bad news is, while they won their previous one, they lost this one. And this was a game where, I didn't think they played badly in this one. They just didn't take advantage of their chances. And how many times we've said before, when you don't take advantage of your chances and the opposition does, yeah, you're probably going to end up in the losing end more time or not. Now, moving on in terms of the next match, is Vancouver versus the Colorado Rapids. And I got to say, for the Whitecaps, it looked pretty good, at least in the first half. And then the red card changed everything. And there was also something in this game that was very similar to a very controversial moment that we saw in one of the games that I'll talk about in just a bit. But in the first half, 2 minutes in, Fernandez would puts it wide as that was the game for a shot. By the way, that red card basically changed the thing to a point where, yeah, the Rapids pretty much dominate it after the red card happened to the Whitecaps. Larraz then had a shot that was deflected and wide before Johnson would have a shot that was deflected and goes wide. Levante Johnson had a really good game in this one, and he's definitely one to keep an eye on as another Whitecaps player that is a young player that could really thrive under Vanni Sartini's system. Stefan would then deny Vite from long range. There was a shout for a penalty for Colorado not given not long after. And then Stefan would deny Johnson again in on goal here in the 38th minute. There was no doubt the Whitecaps were starting to push for the opener. They were creating some really dangerous chances. But then this is the game changing moment, as in the first minute of stoppage time, a penalty was given to Colorado after VAR deemed that Ovic handballed this one when he was trying to block that one off the line, and as a result, that of course is a red card. And like I said, I'll talk about in a bit that we saw something very similar to this in a game later on. That I would say that in the other game they got it wrong. In this one, I think they got it right. In this one, I think Ovic, when he was on the ground, it looks like his hand was kind of in an outstretched position when the ball struck his hand. And I know handballs are definitely tough to call, especially nowadays with the new rule, or shall I say, is it even implemented in MLS in terms of the new handball rule, and to see whether or not if it's a handball or not. But I think in that play, I think they did get this one right. So Uvik was sent off. Colorado got a penalty, and they were going to be up for the man for the remaining of the game. And Navarro is not going to miss his opportunity to score from the spot. I mean, he's been good in terms of scoring from the spot, and now all of a sudden become very good scoring from open play as well. So he adds another on his tally as he scored here to make it 1-0 in favor of the Rapids. Though on the other end, Johnson did look to respond for the Whitecaps, but he missed wide there. Little did we know that would be one of the few remaining chances the Whitecaps would get for the remaining game, as we head to halftime with the Rapids leading 1-0, and in the second half they started to really take advantage of that man advantage by started creating a boatload of chances. Fernandez would then miss wide from the near post in the 48th minute before Navarro hits it straight to Takaoka. Bassett then missed wide from long range. Again, the Rapids were looking for that second goal, knowing that they have the man advantage. Fernandez would then miss wide from close in the 55th minute. And then Rosenberry would blast it wide from long range. Then Takaoka had to deny Harris from close. It just feels like it's wave after wave of pressure. Like Colorado was knocking on the door of this second goal. But the question is, can they show that clinical finishing? Because you just kind of had a sense that the longer this is going to stay 1-0, and we've seen this before, you don't kill the game off, it's going to come back to haunt you. Mahajevic tried to do so, but he puts it wide from long range before White puts it over from long range in the 76th minute. The Rapids, I thought, again, they got to be careful because this game is not done. Like, the longer they hold this at 1-0, the more I think Rapids fans are starting to concern that it only takes one Whitecaps attack and maybe one Whitecaps lucky bounce, and this game is all tied up again. It doesn't help the fact that the Pulse didn't do their favorite, the Rapids, as in the 84th minutes, it denied Vines there, the post in the near post, and then Harris trying to chip this one uh in to kill this game off, but it was blocked off the line by Veselinovic. And despite the fact that the Rapids weren't able to find that killer second goal, they still were able to win this one by winning 1-0 in this game, as the Whitecaps never really showed any resistance late in this game because of being a man down. And the shots in this one, 17 shots for the 8 that the Whitecaps had, 2 shots on goal for the 4 that the Rapids had, 8 shots off target for the 6 that the Whitecaps had, 4 shots that was blocked for the 1 that the Whitecaps had, and possession-wise, 54% possession compared to 46% possession the Whitecaps has in this game. So for the Rapids, good bounce back win after that disappointing result that they had, blowing a 2-0 lead against the Quakes. But for the Whitecaps, yeah, things are starting to slip away from them. I mean, after a good start that any Sartini team has, it seems like reality is starting to set into this team because they have not played very well. And I also think that now the narrative, unfortunately, for the Whitecaps has truly come true. They play well in the beginning of the season because they took advantage of a paper soft schedule. Now that the schedule started getting tougher, and now that narrative has been proven that they just don't have enough to compete some of these better team in the Western Conference. With that being said, I am now going to switch board one more time and look at the last two remaining game of this 13 game action of this first ever midweek action of the 2024 MLS regular season. So moving on, we got RSL versus the Seattle Sounders, and this is actually a huge win for RSL. I mean, I know they're playing against a Sounders team that is pretty much depleted, but still, RSL this season they have had their struggle at times in terms of some at home, especially their finishing. But they took care of business in this game, and now we're starting to build a little bit of a gap in terms of the top of the standings in the Western Conference. Now, early on, Gomez would miss wide as that was the game first shot. Carlos Gomez would have a monster game in this one, alongside with Diego Luna. Before Rusnak trying to score against his former team, but he blasts one into the stand. I wonder if Rusnak does put that one into the back of the net. I wonder whether or not if he's going to be celebrated. I mean, I'm pretty sure the RSL fans are not going to be appreciated to see him score against us, and I'm pretty sure there were times where he was booed because of him. So it is the case even last season as well. Now, that being said, the shots were one apiece early on, and chances were really kind of far from between. It was at a premium. Fry would then tip Vera's shot over before Ojeda missed wide from long range. But then in the 27th minute, RSL takes the lead. It's Carlos Gomez. He scored from Crux and Luna to give RSL a 1-0 lead. Though on the other end, Beaver would deny Muswaski and an instant response for Seattle. So again, this is a game where it feels like it was RSL versus a couple of former uh, RSL player. And again, if Muswaski scores this one, I guarantee he's going to celebrate because, yeah, he definitely burned some bridges doing his time with RSL. And obviously, RSL fans are probably not going to appreciate that when that of course is the case. I'm surprised he also isn't being booed because of some of the things that he did during his time with RSL. In the 38th minute, Gomez would put it high from close range before Gladwood hits one right to Fry as RSL was pushing for another before halftime. But we do head to halftime with RSL leading 1-0. In the second half, Murnungo would then had a shot that took a deflection and goes wide before on the other end, Gomez had a shot that also a deflection and goes wide. But in the 58th minute, Luna would be on target as he scored a hero from Vera to make it 2-0 in favor of RSL. We're starting to see that Diego Luna has started to get his season going. I mean, it's been a bit of a slow start for the teenage sensation, but in these last couple of games, things are starting to work out for him, and this is definitely great news for RSL because, last season, especially in the playoff, Diego Luna was definitely the MVP of this team. Arango then hits one right to Fry in the 62nd minute. I would like to say that this was a bit of a quiet game for Chicho Arango, and obviously that's good job for the Sounders, the fans, to kind of shut him down. But also the bad news is that they didn't shut down Gomez and Luna throughout this game. And I also wonder if that was on purpose. The fact that I think Seattle was so focused on Arango that they forgot that RSL also have some decent weapons of their own, and this kind of just shows you that it's not just Chicho Arango that is the main man that that opponent need to worry about when they face against RSL. There's definitely some other weapons that they have that kind of just shows you why they're first in the West right now. But that being said, as I said, RSL was feeling it. They were looking to try to get the third goal. Fry would then tip Luna shot over before Gladwood heads it wide from close range. Ojeda would then hits it right to Fry before Ojeda had a shot that was deflected and goes wide in the 80th minute. It was all RSL up to this point. They were pushing for that third goal. They were showing no mercy. Seattle clearly feel like they don't want to be there. They want to get out of here as soon as possible. But now before Gomez puts one right to Fry. And yeah, in the end, RSL, they win 2-0 in this game. The shots in this one, 21 shots compared to 9 that Seattle has. 2 shots on goal compared to 9 that RSL had. 2 shots off target compared to 6 that RSL had. 6 shots that was blocked compared to 5 that Seattle has. And possession-wise, 59% possession compared to 41% possession that the Seattle Sounders has in this game. And like I said, a pretty dominant performance here for Real Salt Lake. And that, yeah, this is a game that just kind of shows you that now that they're starting to get their home form going along with their road form, yeah, they could be like St. Louis last season, where they maybe could start to run away a little bit off the West. For the past couple of seasons, we always see the team at the top of the standings start to run away near around this time of the season, and RSL could definitely be that team if they continue winning and continue the good form that they've been in for the past 4 weeks. Now, that being said, finally, we have got to the final game of this match week, and this was probably the most controversial game. And this is a game where, normally I'm one of those person that, I don't really get super angry if a referee decision gets goes against my team compared to other person. But this was kind of one of those games that really kind of pissed me off. And I know that the Quakes are not having a good season this year, and I've also said before that when you're not having a good season, nothing seems to go right for you. But even then, this, my goodness, man. I mean, what the like the Quakes? I also would like to say that they are forever cursed at Providence Park. Like it feels like it is basically defined in order that they cannot win at Providence Park. And this game basically just shows that again, if it wasn't because of the Quakes just simply suck at whenever they play against the Timbers on the road, it's also a refereeing decision that completely goes against them that just completely changed this game. Now, in the first half, Aspria with the game's first shot, but he hits it right to Yarbrough before Mascara would puts it over in the near post. I thought the Timbers started well, which that was not a surprise because I thought that this was probably going to be an automatic L for the Quakes since they never win at Providence Park, and once again didn't start on time as well. Pellegrino would then put the ball into the back of net. So yeah, almost a crow by saying that, but fortunately the flag kind of bailed me out a little bit, at least bailed me out of eating my words. When that goal was disallowed. But then Guerrezo would puts it wide from close range, and again the Quakes they probably saw what I wrote on this board because they got going and they started to push to try to get the opening goal. And they get it in the 31st minute as Amal Pellegrino would score here to give the Quakes a 1-0 lead. Not long after, Lopez would score to make it 2-0 in favor of the Quakes. And I know it's early days, but Hernan Lopez is worth every single penny of that DP tag that the Quakes, of course, give him. And he's really started giving me vibes of Christian Espinoza when he came into this Quakes team, and that back then that was a record signing, and it turns out that it paid off in a big time, and I have a feeling it's gonna be the same for Hernan Lopez, and just kind of just shows you what a difference it makes when you have a decent number 10. But also that being said, that also came off of a brutal giveaway from Mabiella. Yeah, there's a reason why Mabiella doesn't get regular minutes. So I think a lot of Timbers fans was a little surprised to see him on the starting 11, and I'm pretty sure Timbers fans are praying that he's not going to be there anymore. I mean, he's been there a long time, and I'm pretty sure that when he does retire, I'm pretty sure Timbers fan will definitely cherish his service that he has for this team. But he's completely washed up. He's getting to the point where I'm even surprised that the fact that he's still on this roster. But nevertheless, the Quakes were leading 2-0 in this one, and I just think, yeah, this feels too good to be true. I mean, I know the Timbers have not had a good season. I mean, they're on the longest active winless run up to this point, but I just feel like something's wrong with this. Something is completely off with this game. There's no way the Quakes are going to hang on. There's something bad I think is going to happen that would just kind of continue this curse of the Quakes just not going to get a win at Providence Park and not allowed to get a win at Providence Park. And you'll be right because that this is where things really took a turn for its worse for the Quakes. And it started well, actually it didn't start at that because the post would deny Lopez from long range, so it was another golazo that Hernan Lopez would score before Anthony would puts it wide from close range, and then Rodriguez hits one right to Yarbrough. Yarbrough then denied Mora from the header, and this is where I'm starting to see that Lucci bunker ball is starting to happen. We've seen this happen before on the road and also at home. I hate it. The Timbers were starting to getting some good chances, but this is where the controversy begins. So, Bruno Wilson, he originally made a good goal line block on Felipe Mora, but just like what I said about Utvik with the Vancouver Whitecaps getting himself sent off because of making that goal line block because the ball hits his hand. This was the same case too. Now, like I said, the Ubik one, I think that was called correctly because it looks like Ubik hand was in an outstretched position. This was not. Wilson, his hand was in a tuck position, and that I just think like, what is what can he do like in that situation? There's really no way he can make that goal line block without the ball hitting his hand like that. And I also argue there was even one replay where I thought maybe it might have hit Wilson, um, it might hit Wilson's five and then hit his hand too. And if that's the case, that's not handball either because I've seen that before where a player it hits part of his body and bounce into his hand, and they never give that as handball. But I think what's even more criminal about this, they didn't go to VAR for this, and I don't want to once again build up steam about my talks of VAR and the inconsistent that Pro of course has had. But this really kind of makes me want to do it because the fact that they didn't even go to VAR and the fact that it was close enough where they could have just gone to VAR to see whether or not if they get it wrong. Yeah, again, this is when I thought the worst is gonna come, and that this kind of reminds me a little bit a couple of years ago when the Quakes were leading 4-1 against Atlanta, but then they call back for a penalty on the other end, and then I think Joseph Martinez got that second goal to make it 3-2, and that's when I knew the Quakes were not going to win this. And that was also during the time when the Quakes were having a bad season as well. So yeah, this feels like it's very similar. Again, penalty was given to the Timbers. Evander basically puts that one away, and just like that game, the Quakes had a 2-goal advantage, but now it's down to 1. And I also remember wrote the Quakes are going to blow this because I've seen this story before. And lo and behold, it happened. Because it all started when Capacito Rodriguez would tie the game up for Miller to tie the game to make it 2-2. And then to make insult to injury, a penalty was given to the Timbers after they actually used VAR this time to deem that Yarbrough brought down Rodriguez from the spot. Now that call, I have no problem with it. I think it's the right call. But what I have problem is, so you use VAR in this play. Why did you not use VAR in the Bruno Wilson kind of incident? Like inconsistency in terms of refereeing. Man, it drives me nuts at time, and I know other fans basically has that feeling, and I try to hide that, especially when I do a review like this, but it just like it just makes me really upset when I see these inconsistency call that is being made. And unsurprisingly, with when that penalty was given, Felipe Mora steps up to take the penalty. I'm surprised Evander didn't take the penalty. I think Evander was subbed off up to this point, so that's why he didn't take the penalty. But yeah, Mora bears it to make it 3-2 in this one. And then in the 10th minute stoppage time, Capacito Rodriguez would get his brace as he scored here for Moreno to make it 4-2 in favor of the Timbers. And yeah, just like that, in a very controversial way, the Timbers have ended their winless run. I think it was at 8 games that they were winless as they win 4-2 in this one. Shots in this one, 24 shots compared to 11 that the Quakes had. 4 shots on goal compared to 10 that the Timbers had. 2 shots off target compared to 6 that the Timbers had. 9 shots off block compared to 5 that the Quakes had. And possession-wise, 58% possession compared to 42% possession that the Quakes has in this game. And if there's any Quakes fans are absolutely fuming about this game, and especially the refereeing decision goes against them, I don't blame them. I'm fuming as well as a Quakes fans myself, and I get it. Yes, when you're not having a good season, things doesn't go your way. But yeah, I get it, but it doesn't mean that you have to drive insult to injury and twist the knife of a resort that, yeah, and this team was doing well too. My biggest fear is that this resort will really slow the progression and really kind of fall back to a point where the Quakes could go on another long winless run, because this is a soul crushing loss that the Quakes have suffered, and one that it is going to really test the mentality of this team. And from what I know this season, especially with the way how they completely collapse after the red card, something tells me that mentality is probably not going to end very well, and that next game against Orlando City, they absolutely need to bounce back that win. And I would even say that that's a must-win game for the Quakes if they want to avoid going on another a bad winless run, just because of a soul-crushing result like that. That unfortunately, it was partially due to some very controversial moment that we saw in this game. But there you have it. That is pretty much it in terms of looking at all the game from match week number 13. Again, if you made it to the end of this video, thank you for watching seeing this, and basically, I know most people won't watch the entire part of the video. That's why timestamp basically exists. But if you watch the whole thing of it, thank you for watching the whole part of it, and thank you for basically sticking with me, despite the fact that you can clearly tell my voice is completely worn out. And I'm not even done yet. I still got to do the news of the week episode after this review. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you like, smash the subscribe button. Let me know in the comments below what do you think of these games and all the other 13 game action that we have in the middle of the week. We're gonna get weekends action very quickly, as we're gonna have full slate of action that's gonna be happening on Saturday and actually, I think it's only gonna be Saturday. I don't think there's gonna be Sunday game this weekend. I know there's gonna be one early Saturday game, but I think the rest of them is gonna be all bunched up each other. So yeah, that's gonna be fun to see. Trying to keep up 10 games at the same time. But anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.